A palpable sense of anxiety permeated the night, the type that stuck to the atmosphere like the odor of gunpowder after a shot had been fired. The 5 masked individuals went through the high-security vault of the Sterling National Bank-like shadows. Their gloved hands worked quickly, deactivating alarms, breaking safes, and loading duffel bags with stacks of crisp notes that could not be traced back to their original source. The reason they referred to themselves as the Untouchables was not because they were arrogant, but rather because they had successfully carried out robbery after heist over a period of 2 years without leaving a single trace behind. No DNA, no fingerprints, and no witnesses were found. Nothing except empty vaults and detectives who were perplexed. But things were different tonight. They believed that it was the ideal criminal act. Each and every instant of this mission had been meticulously planned out by their boss, a guy who went by the name Viper. It was possible to account for every single guard's patrol route, every single camera blind area, and even the precise moment when the security system would reboot in order to do its nightly update. While they were sneaking out of the back entrance and disappearing into the maze of the city's subterranean tunnels, allowed himself a grin that was quite uncommon. The win was faultless once again. They were unaware of the fact that the most significant error they made was not in the actions they took, but rather in the things that they failed to notice. The one who was observing. The Untouchables have been the subject of Detective Alina Reyes' pursuit for a number of months. During the time when the rest of the force disregarded them as ghosts, she became aware of something that the others had overlooked, a pattern that was concealed in plain sight. Every theft occurred at the same time as a significant event in the city, which ensured that the police were overworked. Each and every escape route led to abandoned subway tunnels that the general public had long since forgotten about. And each and every dime that was stolen, rather from being spent, it was being accumulated in a reserve. However, the true breakthrough occurred when Reyes discovered a single fingerprint that was smeared on a coffee cup that had been dumped close to a prior murder scene. The individual who owned it was a guy called Marcus Cole, who had previously worked as a security consultant and had extensive understanding of banking systems. The trap had been dug. Instead of breaking into Cole's flat, Reyes chose to take a more strategic approach. She allowed them to take the money away. She gave them the impression that they had triumphed. Due to the fact that they stole the bills, they were not only tagged, rather they were implanted with tracking devices that were so small that they were invisible by standard scanners. During this time, Reyes and her squad were getting closer to the location where the Untouchables were celebrating in their secret warehouse and counting their riches. The law strikes back, more brutal. The doors of the warehouse blasted inward around 3:17 in the morning. There was a flashbang explosion, which caused the robbers to become disoriented as SWAT forces rushed in. Viper made a move to grab his weapon, but he was unable to do so because Reyes brought her weapon forward and aimed it directly between his eyes. "It's funny that you guys call yourselves the Untouchables," she said with a chilly tone in her voice. "You should have made sure that name was true." Each of them was brought out in handcuffs, and their empire of stolen money began to crumble around them as they were brought out. After some time, the media would refer to it as the heist that backfired, although Reyes was aware of the reality. There is no long-term escape from justice, and on occasion, the retribution is more severe than they could have ever anticipated. As the Untouchables came before the judge, their arrogance was finally stripped away, and the courtroom was crowded all the way to capacity. "Master Thieves brought down by detectives' genius move" was the headline that roared over the internet. The city had a celebration. Justice had triumphed. Nevertheless, Alina Reyes was unable to escape the impression that something was not quite right. The majority of the stolen cash had been recovered by the police, with the exception of one duffel bag. The disappearance of a cool $2.5 million remained a mystery. She questioned Viper, and he responded with a sneer. He said, "Reyes, you are doing well, but not that good." Following then, the unimaginable took place. From the inside out, Detective Daniel Carter, Reyes' colleague, disappeared 3 days after the arrest. He was the guy who had supported her throughout every raid and the one who had given her that essential coffee cup, as well as the records of the evidence. At 2 in the morning, Carter was seen on surveillance camera entering the evidence locker, withdrawing files, and then leaving the facility as if it were just another shift working. However, when Reyes investigated further, She discovered a bank account in the Cayman Islands that was under Carter's true name and had a deposit of $500,000 that had been made the night before the attack on the Sterling. Since the beginning, he had been cooperating with them. Carter was more than simply a sleazy law enforcement officer, because he was the architect. Each and every perfect theft, the Untouchables were provided with the police reaction plans by him. All possible escape routes. They were built by him based on municipal designs that were exclusively accessible to law enforcement professionals. The $2.5 million that has been missing. The reward he received for ensuring that they were the ones to take the blame while he escaped. Initially, Viper had been a ruse, but the true perpetrator was still hiding in the shadows. Revenge against Reyes. In this case, justice was not the only issue. It was rather personal. During the course of Carter's life, Reyes tore through everything like a hurricane, including his apartment, his mistress, and his favorite seedy pub, which he believed no one would look at. She then discovered the clue, which was a single train ticket to Mexico City that was scheduled to depart at midnight. Just as he was boarding, she arrived at the location. Going somewhere, partner? Carter became completely numb. A glimmer of self-assuredness started to appear in his eyes for the very first time. He made a move to get his pistol, but Reyes was quicker than him. Flash! The gunfire reverberated throughout the station, which was completely empty. Carter fell to the ground, holding his leg and groaning in agony as she placed him in handcuffs. She snarled, "You ought to have stayed away altogether." While clenching his teeth, he laughed deeply. "You believe that I am the one who will bring this to a close. Always remember that there is another player, Reyes, constantly." The blood that was on Reyes' hands was the focus of her attention, while the sirens screamed in the distance. At this point, she had triumphed. But Carter's remarks continued to torment her. Was there anybody else involved? On top of that, who was going to be the next person to come after her? During the time that federal officials were dragging Carter into the back of an armored vehicle, the gunshot wound that had been administered to his leg was still gushing. Reyes was followed by his laughing, which was rough and abrasive, like a ghost. There's always another player. They made an effort to shrug it off. This case has been resolved. The money that was salvaged, the one who is now being held in custody. Following then, her phone rang with a message that was encrypted. "You deprived me of my liberty, so I'll take yours now. Keep up with the news. VIP escapes transport underway. Breaking news. There was an attack on the armored vehicle that was transporting Viper to the highest level of security. 2 of the guards have been killed. There are no witnesses." A solitary security camera was the only one that managed to capture the blur of movement, which consisted of a person in black falling from an overpass and effortlessly ripping through the roof like it was paper. It is impossible to be professional and silent. Neither of them was a jailbreak. It was a kind of assertion. It was commotion when Reyes arrived at the station, which he surged inside. Each and every screen aired the same live stream, which once again featured Sterling National Bank. The doors to the vault were left open, just as they had been in the past. But this time there was no subtlety and no accuracy. Only a single word, written in blood-red characters and spray-painted over the outside wall. Alina. In addition to that, a playing card, namely the Ace of Spades, was affixed to the steel using a knife. It is time to set the trap, but for whom? This time, Viper was not interested in taking money. It was a theft on his part. There was a taunt in every stride. It was captured on surveillance film that he walked around the bank as if he owned it, stopping sometimes to wave before the cameras. He wished for her to be able to see. I desired for her to pursue. In light of the fact that this was no longer about money, we were seeking retribution. At 3 in the morning, her burner started to ring. "You thought you won?" Viper spoke in a soothing tone that was almost amused. "However, you have just been fooled. It was a pawn in the game. What about the money? Something that diverts attention. At this point, the real game begins. There is a pause. After that, I am the owner of a secret that will have a devastating effect on your life. Come with me to the place where it all started. Come by yourself, ... else everyone will perish," when the line was cut off. The defunct subway tunnel, which was the same tunnel that the Untouchables utilized for their first theft, not occupied. There are no cameras. There are no witnesses. Ideal for committing a murder. That is a confession. As Reyes entered the shadows, she did so with her weapon drawn and her pulse remaining steady. Next, the lights suddenly came on. With his arms wide out and a grin on his face, Viper stood in the middle of the tunnel. "Welcome to the end, Detective." A surveillance footage that was 13 years old was shown on a screen that flickered to life behind him. It was as if Reyes' blood had frozen, mostly due to the fact that the video showed her father accepting a bribe from a criminal organization, the very same syndicate that was the owner of Viper. Truth hit harder than a bullet in the right place. It was a filthy business. Furthermore, during your whole career, you have been cleaning up his trash. The smile on Viper's face became wider. The phrase, "I do not want money, Reyes. I am interested in you. Join me, or people all across the globe will discover the truth." It was a different screen. Each of the main news networks offering a live feed that is prepared to air the recording. It seemed as if a thumb was hovering over a button,